It's 1986, and in a coffee shop off the Vegas Strip, a short, stocky man stirs his espresso. Silently, he runs his cold eyes over the messenger in front of him. For nearly 2 decades, he's been the mob's man in Vegas, the most feared enforcer in mafia history.
He was the enforcer, period. They didn't dare cut into the skim because if Chicago called him and told him to go take care of them, they knew that they would be killed.
He lights a cigar, savouring the taste. But something's different. The air is thick, heavy, with something he's not used to feeling. Fear. The note in front of him isn't a tribute, it's a summons. Chicago, Mob HQ. He exhales a slow stream of smoke. He knows what this means. In the mob, when they call you home, you don't come back. But to understand how and why he's about to meet his end, we need to go back to the moment when he first laid eyes on Sin City and decided to take it for himself. Back in 1971, a 33-year-old Anthony Tony Spilotro needs to leave Chicago. That's not his decision or a choice. It's what the bosses want. And he knows what the bosses want, the bosses get. The mob hierarchy works like this. At the bottom of the pyramid, there are associates. They help out with minor jobs but don't know all the secrets. Then there's the soldiers, like Tony, the lowest rank of made men, trusted wise guys who have been sworn into the mafia family. Only the best soldiers become a capo or captain, sitting at the top table and reporting into the boss. That's Tony's dream, to become a senior family member with all the privileges and protection that it brings. And then, at the top of the tree, there's the underboss and boss. In Chicago, that's Joey Orpa, with a consigliere on the side as an advisor.
Tony was a very, very tough guy. And if you gotten on the wrong side of him, you may possibly get your head broke, your legs broke, get killed.
From the moment he joined the family's ranks as a kid running errands with his pal Frank Carliotta, Tony's done whatever the mob's asked of him so he can keep on rising. His speciality? The dirty work. And the stories are legendary. When a guy named Bill McCarthy wouldn't name an accomplice, Tony stuck his head in a vice and squeezed until his eyes began to pop out. Then he talked. McCarthy and the accomplice, Jimmy Mariglia, was soon found dead. They were the M&M murders, and everyone knew about it. Tony might only be 5'5", but he's made a name for himself. Now though, that name's a little too well known. He even has his own FBI agent who follows him around like a puppy. Special Agent William Roma refers to Tony as that little pissant, and his nickname is born, Tony the Ant.
Just a tough little squirt, but no qualms about shooting somebody in the back.
Looking to get Tony out of the firing line, the bosses have a smart idea. The mafia controls some of the biggest casinos in Las Vegas, but it isn't even gambling which now makes most of their money. It's the cash that they cream off the top, thanks to a brand new skim. And while Tony's old friend, Lefty Rosenthal, oversees the skim, the mob also needs an enforcer. But their current guy, Marshall Cafino, has been banned by the Gaming Commission. Someone new needs to step in, and Tony is perfect. The job is explained to him. Keep a close eye on Lefty, and make sure the money keeps flowing back to Chicago. And not just Chicago. This is a joint deal with all the Midwest crime families in Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. It's the first time that this has happened, so it's a very important job. Do it right, and it's Tony's chance to rise up to capo. The FBI will be watching though, so whatever happens, the bosses don't want any drama. When Tony arrives, he sets up base at the Stardust Casino, their biggest cash cow, where Lefty is based. Soon, millions a month, untaxed and freshly laundered, are going straight to the mob. They love Tony, and they're extremely happy. Vegas is now a lucrative, well-oiled machine. The mob pay off the cops and keep the crime down themselves, and everything is surprisingly calm. Soon, all that changes. If you give a job to Tony, it's going down the Tony way. That is, fast, hard and painful. And straight away he sees an opportunity to make some money for himself. He sticks a tax on every bookie, loan shark, drug dealer and pimp in town. So if they want to keep working, they've got to pay their dues. Miss one payment is a baseball bat. Miss two is a bullet. Usually, one guy gets hung from a meat hook. During his first 5 years in Vegas, the city records more homicides than previous 25 years combined. The message is loud and clear. Nobody messes with Tony. He even runs a street robbery gang, mugging tourists. It's easy pickings. Word gets back to the bosses that Tony has work on the side, but hey, he's making them millions, so they don't really care. The FBI, meanwhile, have never stopped watching, but by 1978, they've made little progress. Then, they finally catch a break. A hotshot New Vegas police chief named Kent Clifford pledges to eliminate corruption and to work with the feds. It's never happened before. The Nevada Gaming Commission plays its part too, adding Tony's name to its infamous Black Book, banning him from every casino in the state. Now he can't do the job that the mob pay him for, and that's a problem. Next, the feds raid his HQ, the Gold Rush jewelry store where Tony launders his loot. Dozens of boxes of evidence are seized, and the newspapers love it. Ever since the days of the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., the Vegas mob has been cool. For the bosses though, it's more unwanted noise. Tony doesn't care. He's released without charges and has worries of his own. Despite having a wife and a son at home, his taste for Sin City's women, drugs and gambling means he's racking up the debts. Broken bored, he needs a new way of making money while he waits for his promotion, so he finds one. And soon, things are spiralling out of control. It's 1979 now, and while Tony is more than happy to resort to violence, he's also a skilled thief. So now it's time to rob. He assembles a crew who he believes will always stay loyal, including his capo, Fat Herbie Blitzstein, his younger brother Michael Spilotro, and his old friends Frank Coleota and Sal Romano. Together, they carry out a string of audacious robberies targeting casinos, luxury homes and businesses. Their signature move? They don't shimmy through shadows or crawl through vents. They simply smash through walls, loud, reckless and hugely successful. And if there are ever any witnesses, they know not to talk. But news still travels. Once again, the papers love it, and they name them the Hole in the Wall Gang, a tribute to Butch Cassidy's band of outlaws. And although the feds have nothing, yet, everyone knows who's really responsible. And to the Midwest mob bosses, that publicity is not appreciated. They're not happy. And it isn't just the money that Tony's stealing in plain sight, it's power and other people's wives. With Tony going off the rails, Lefty's become the mob's golden boy. The Stardust Skim has gone from strength to strength, and he's even hosting his own talk show. Now, he thinks that he can tell Tony what to do, and he tells him to rein it in, but Tony ignores him. Not only that, he gives his friend the biggest fuck you of all by starting an affair with his wife. It's disrespect, and it won't go unanswered. The FBI, meanwhile, are slowly building their case, and while Tony becomes increasingly paranoid, they're happy to sit and wait. They know that they won't need forever, because they're sure that he'll make a mistake, and it's not long before he does. Come July 14th, 1981, Vegas is alight with fireworks, champagne and high rollers dropping millions. The entire city is celebrating American freedom, but is Tony about to lose his? Looking increasingly crazy, he leads the Hole in the Wall gang out for another heist. In theory, it should be one of their most simplest, but most lucrative. A classic smash and grab. Bertha's Gifts and Home Furnishings sits at 896 East Sahara Avenue. Founded by Bertha Ragland shortly after World War II, the store specialises in high-end antiques and jewellery, but Tony likes it for a different reason. Bertha is famous for her distrust of banks. We can all understand that, but the problem is that Bertha keeps large amounts of cash in a safe. It's too easy. Breaking into things is the gang's speciality, and when it comes to safes, they have every angle covered. Option 1 involves using thermal lances or oxyacetylene torches to burn through locks and casing. This does leave telltale marks though, so sometimes they prefer option 2, drilling, boring into precise locations to avoid triggering alarms. The option 3 is using a simple stethoscope to crack combinations, and if none of these work, they'll just use option 4, brute force, smashing the thing open. Option 5 is their last resort, taking the whole thing with them and solving the problem later. This time though, they don't even make it to the safe. As fireworks fill the sky, they bash into Bertha's with a sledgehammer. A full SWAT team surrounds them. It's a setup. Tony's mistake was to think that no one would rat him out. that fear would keep everyone silent, but fear fades when someone's offered a better deal, and that someone was a hole-in-the-wall alarms expert, Sal Romano. But once behind bars, Tony is calm. He's been arrested before, many times. With the mob's help, he can make cases disappear, and the only one who really knows where the bodies are buried, both figuratively and literally, is Frank Colaiuta, his oldest friend, and he'd never betray him, would he? Once again, Tony gets out on bail, just like that, and walks away. No fear, no remorse, no hesitation. And the years tick by. 1982, 83, 84, 85. To everyone else, it looks like his world is falling apart, but Tony believes he'll be fine. He'll do whatever it takes to protect himself and keep his capo dream alive. That means making sure his past misdemeanors, murders dating all the way back to Chicago, can never come back to bite him. First, he tries killing Lefty Rosenthal.
This is what's left of Frank Lefty Rosenthal's Cadillac. Federal officials think the bomb was placed under the gas tank. It appears the force of the explosion blew upward and to the rear.
He hits him with a car bomb, but the plot fails. So then, he puts a hit out on Frank Colaiuta. But although he doesn't know it yet, it's too little, too late, because the FBI have an ace in their pack. Unknown to Tony, they put the squeeze on Frank, and playing him a secret recording of the moment Tony puts that hit on his life, they get to him before Tony's contract killer and offer a way out. And he tells them everything. The robberies, violence, the skims, and that Tony was responsible for multiple brutal murders. On the 24th of October 1983, Tony goes on trial for the M&M murders of Bill McCarthy and Jimmy Maraglia 21 years earlier, but mob ties run deep and they still have Tony's back. In what seems a crazy move, he waives his right to trial by jury. Judge Thomas J. Maloney would decide his fate alone, and he finds a lack of reliable evidence. Tony is acquitted again, and Maloney is later convicted of fixing 3 murder trials and sentenced to 15 years. Suddenly though, allies are hard to come by, perhaps because of the mob bosses who everyone's really scared of. They look like they've had enough. For years, Tony was valuable, so he was untouchable, but now he's become a liability. The hole-in-the-wall gang brought noise, and the bosses weren't even seeing the benefits. With members now being flipped, he's making them look weak, so what are they going to do? Behind the scenes, the bosses meet, and the message comes from the very top. It's a family matter, so let's keep it in the family. Back in Vegas, Tony is having coffee when he gets the invite. He knows what's coming, and frankly, it's about time. It's June 14th, 1986. Tony and his brother Michael have had the call to a special meet back in Chicago. The rumour, after years of service and sacrifice, Tony is finally about to get his dues and become a capo. Michael, though, is nervous. Unlike Tony, he doesn't have decades of blood on his hands. He's a small-time crook caught up in his brother's world, and he has a bad feeling. They meet high-ranking mobster Jimmy Marcello in a parking lot and then head to a house in Bennettsville, a quiet suburb in the city. There, they're led down into a basement. A dozen men appear and the door slams shut. Tony raises a hand as if to ask for a prayer, but no one listens. The first punch lands, then another, then a dozen. He never gets words out. The beating is brutal, unrelenting and merciless. Baseball bats, fists, boots, everything is used. And very quickly, the dream is over. Their bodies are dumped in a shallow grave in an Indiana cornfield. They're not even properly buried. Just enough dirt to cover them, just enough so they can easily be discovered and be front page news.
While it is no surprise that the brothers fell victim to a mob hit, what is surprising is the manner in which their bodies were disposed of. The deep grave is clearly out of character for crime syndicate killings, leaving authorities to speculate that the Spilatros were never meant to be found.
Anthony Tony the Ant Spilatro's brutal life is immortalised in the Martin Scorsese film Casino, where Joe Pesci's performance as Nicky Santoro is inspired by the real-life mobster. Tony was either publicly accused or questioned in more than 25 execution-style killings, but his death means that the FBI never got their man. Their landmark cooperation with the police does pay off in a bigger way though. There's finally enough evidence to take down the Stardust Skim, and with it, top several names from the Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee and Cleveland crime families. Lefty Rosenthal walks away a free man. Someone has to pay the price though, and show everyone that the mob are still a force. That's Tony. But reality, it's too little, too late. Their day is done. The old ways die out and the grip on Vegas fades. New money comes in, Wall Street money. For the ordinary punter like you and I, it should be good news, a safer, fairer Vegas. But if you've seen this video, that's clearly not the case.